I mean, in a way, that's good. But, you know, I don't know if he was just keeping up appearances. You know, he's an optimistic, happy-go-lucky kind of kid. Or he really has not thought about it as a weak point. But it is, you know, I think that would be the most concerning thing for Clem going into Katowice. But we'll talk about that later. Perhaps during some of the downtime, as Clem is no longer in the tournament at all. And we are on top of MaxPax, in the top left of Grethvan. In the bottom right it is Spirit, so a little more important. So let's talk about these guys, right? So MaxPax, familiar face very much to the top 4 finals and even champion of the Open Cup. Familiar face being a black silhouette, of course. Or a Portal Sellet, either one. But then the, you know, Spirit, still, I would say a little less well known, right? You know, you put either one of these names in your YouTube keywords, and one of the names, MaxPax, gets like a big old like #1 on whatever YouTube thing you're using. Because people really want to see him. They really want to know more about him. Spirit a little less so. Spirit's more of the... My cat pushes over a bunch of stuff. And thank you, Novix, for the 13 months. Spirit is on the straight and narrow almost, right? Whereas MaxPax's playstyle has heavily deviated from the meta, and in fact, he has pushed much of the meta this way or that. Spirit was really on the straight and narrow macro, even insane macro. One of the only Terrans who seems even eager to go into the extreme late game in all of the matchups, but particularly in TVP where a lot of others are shy. He has changed things up considerably. I mean, I think he was always willing to cheese. He was always willing to do a little bit of this or that, but most people know Spirit as the guy who did the macro and then was just not as good, and this is just me being completely frank, don't mean to be insulting, not as good as like a Hero Marine at it. Right? So, you know, Spirit, great. You know, you might individually like him. Might be one of your underdog picks. You know, you appreciate how much hard work he puts in, but you don't really expect him to get very far. Last week, everyone's expectations for the guy got blown out of the water. Not only did he win the Open Cup, but he also defeated both Hero Marine in the finals 3-0, as well as Raynor in the semifinals 2-0. And he just looked damn good on it. Like if he can keep up that type of performance going into Katowice, then he is a strong contender to make it into the groups, as he currently is in the round of 36. So I think it's just awesome. I think Spirit's, you know, he's a good guy. He does really, really, really work hard, and he's been overshadowed. So maybe it's finally his time to shine. He did do kind of well at Katowice last year, if you guys were watching that. So maybe he can repeat the performance. So I've gone over 2 of the players. Haven't really talked about the build. MaxPax did go for a forward gateway. This helps him wall off, but of course it also helps him get his units across the map a bit faster. So his probe scout scouted really one thing, and that was it was a marine opener. I don't know if it actually got back in to see if it was going to be a follow-up Reaper or follow-up reactor, but of course now he knows. And that would have changed the amount of marines available, right? So this Reaper across the map is actually already deflected, so you might have just default assumed there was going to be a Reaper, built a shield battery. And that's not going to do any damage. It's also not back at home, being particularly helpful. If it was at home, it could be a little helpful. But you can see that there's just like a small number of units. You had to wait for the reactor. The handling doesn't help that much. You got to wait for the tech lab afterwards if you get something a little bit stronger. And you don't really want to deviate too much from your build if you don't have to. So for Spirit, he hasn't too much. The bunker saved the day for the most part. The command center is able to get back to building and mining. And then he continues on basically with the same build order he wanted to. Reaper and Hellion get 3 probe kills. That's actually pretty nice. Top kill on the scouting probe. That's a nicer start for Spirit, actually. He didn't lose any SCVs to that little harassment early on. And now he's going to go into the Wood of Mine drop. MaxPax is actually sending out his stalkers trying to intercept this. Of course, when it's individual stalkers, you're not going to actually kill it. But you can see where it's coming from. And Terran players would... I mean, in this case, might even have to pull back. Yeah, instead of trying to race towards the dead space. Because I'm not quite sure how many stalkers, but you do still want to get that medevac in position. So MaxPax knows where it's coming from. Technically, he's delayed it a little bit, I suppose. But you still have to worry about it. You can't do MaxPax's 4-gate, because that's, you know, that's what he always does here. You can't go for a 4-gate and then not prepare yourself mentally for the Wood of Mine drop to occur. And for the Terran, I mean, there's almost no downside to this, kind of, which is that you know, in the idea that either you buy time, you delay this a little bit longer, hopefully get that tank out, and the second tank's a little bit farther along, your bunkers are finished, all that type of stuff. Or you actually get some damage done, which, you know, it could just be lost mining time, but something that also would distract the Protoss. They'd have to go back and not, you know, be blinking around all that much. So this is very familiar territory for both players. Spirit's one tank is out, second one is close. We know the Raven is out too, thanks to the patch change. That comes out lickety-split. It's actually already moving across to get some auditor harassment done. Also get some scouting done. So if you can see how fast this third Nexus was put down, it would be giving a little more intense to what MaxPax is really wanting to do. The Raven was quite courageous going over all of that scouting and still trying to get into the natural. Stalkers are there. The Raven looks like it's going to die. The Wood Mines are burrowing awfully close to the probes. Oh, no. All right, MaxPax was focused on breaking down the bunker and a tank by the looks of things. Other tank is out and being brought down. SCVs had to be pulled, so it's going to be worker devastation on both sides of the map. But what am I think? Oh, the medevac survived. What am I did not? Okay, and the Raven has. Okay, well, that's like it's like a little bit better than what we expect for Spirit. Also, kind of a little bit worse because he did have to pull those SCVs at the end of the day. MaxPax's Blink Stalker is still incredibly deadly, but now that bio count also is rather impressive, anchored by that tank. It's going to look to be a little bit too much for the Stalkers to do a tremendous amount of additional damage. Now, 12 SCVs lost to 9 probes. You might say like, oh, well, of course, the Protoss got ahead in that department, right? But the Protoss has been stifling themselves because they're doing the 2 base aggression. They need to be higher up on base count, really, at this point, you know, if they're going to try and macro out of this. So this still puts MaxPax in a very difficult spot. He's going to continue to work his magic. War Prism in the main base gets shut down. Finally, that's out of the equation. But the Stalkers in the natural did grab, I believe, yet another tank. Not going to grab this one. Good save there with the medevac. And then the SCV count did once again get hit. 4 probes went down to the auto turret. 14 SCVs so far from Spirit. But he would still win out on the economy if this were to come into a macro game. He still has those 2 mules being dropped. And his bio is just simply better than Stalker's once it's got its upgrades, once it's got its medevacs. So Spirit should still be in a really good position. If the auto turret still is available too. I'm actually not, I guess that came back. I'm pretty sure those 4 probes tied to an auto turret. And they just came back quicker than I expected. But anyway, so this could actually continue doing damage or add itself into the main push. Spirit now has that mobility, is going to go ahead and get a map presence of a type. A single medevac doesn't seem like a lot, but it's something. I'm not sure if the observer was able to scout that. It looks like MaxPax figures it, scouts it, figures it, whatever. Was looking for it, has already missed it. Those Marines take a very safe path, fully unload first, then stim into the natural. Going to force a recall. There's really not much else MaxPax can do. Warping in individual Stalkers, even against that shield battery, would be kind of risky. Some attempted worker damage from the War Prism yet again. Spirit clearly wanted to go for that War Prism. Not going to be able to get it that time. Constant A mover, thank you for the 13 months. Everyone on 13 this time around. Medevac drop still in play. Spirit's 10 workers behind at this point. All right, he's also been capped out on the amount of workers you even need. The longer the game goes, the more you start mining out of minerals, so it's not really going to be truly reflective of like a 2-base economy. And if MaxPax can keep this up, can keep ahead on the 10 worker count, can keep ahead of the army push, then he might actually be able to recover. Now 17 workers ahead, that sounds really, really great, right? But now the issue is definitely the army supply. Spirit, at the end of the day, was still consistently building up an army better than MaxPax has done. Just with the way bio builds up, right? Good catch, and the Stalker's trying to retreat as well. The medevac drop and the auto turret's trying to collect what they can. Thin out the buffer of this single disruptor, because that's really all MaxPax has got. Single disruptor, now 2 disruptors. Spirit also not a whole lot of medevac healing. That's my primary concern when it comes to the amount of fights, but disruptors, as long as they're avoided, they're not going to impact the game. And without the disruptors, the Stalkers just, you know, they're not really supposed to win against this composition. If they could have tired this push out so that this army was in the red by the time it gets across the map, well, then maybe something could have happened. But even then, you'd still have to sacrifice your Nexus. The tanks would still be in play. Eventually, more medevacs would join up. Now, it's nice that it's somewhat injured, but not injured enough for suddenly Blink Stalkers to be all that much better than a bigger Bio Ball with better upgrades. And MaxPax does look to be mostly out of solutions. I guess continue trying to get those disruptor shots. But the amount of buffer for those disruptor shots, well, it's actually okay. A bunch of Zealots just got warped in. You know, basically the question is, can Spirit kill MaxPax? And if he can't kill him, how much damage does he do to himself in the attempt to do that? So if he's getting really impatient or he feels like he can't macro out of this, because he also continued to lose some workers, although now MaxPax loses his long-distance mining probes. He might be saying, like, I am desperate, I need to actually end it right here and right now, which is what 4 disruptors now would be great at stopping. Dedication on the Warp Prism harassment, more Zealots warped in, is a pretty neat idea to help with this whole theory that I'm putting at you. This theory that if I could just force Spirit to feel forced, then I could probably win this fight with a decent disruptor hit. Spirit handles this about as calmly as one can. He has a huge army. Remember, back at home, that just dealt with the harassment, but it has actually not dealt with the freaking warp prisms. It's still got to stay at home. That also includes all the medevacs. So as Spirit starts to get chased down, if his units can actually make it back home, which it looks like they will be healed up again. And again, they just be better than what MaxPax has without the disruptors. The disruptors are pretty pivotal here. MaxPax gets 2 good disruptor shots, and that might just turn the tide of this game. 10 armor supply difference, but it's about to be a 2 upgrade difference as well. We still have tanks helping out in these engagements, and we even have, I guess, a Viking to help take care of that Warp Prism. But also a Ghost Academy is on the way. Let's see if the disruptors can do it. They're already going to get... You know, that actually wasn't the best shot, considering that Spirit barely moved. That wasn't actually that great. And now a drop in the main base has forced another recall. MaxPax is trying to get a 3rd base back up and running. About halfway done here. So he's thinking there's a chance to roll out of this game, but it's going to be incredibly difficult to do so. And he has this huge gas bank that might be, you know, like, oh, I know, I'll just go into Archons. Well, EMPs are going to demolish that, and they're stronger EMPs at this point in time than they would have been in the last patch. So, I mean, yeah, better to have the units than not, right? But it's not really going to be the cure, the magic cure to everything. Spirit has lifted his main base, by the way, so still not the most amazing economy. But at 5 workers ahead for the Protoss and 2 mules being dropped every so often. I don't think they've been super consistent. He's had to scan. You know, it's still much better. It was actually... This has been more MaxPax's favorite up until the last minute. Protoss army looks kind of intimidating. And it is. It is, with those disruptors taking control of so much of the area. But never forget that it's also sort of made out of glass. It's not going to stand up all that well if Spirit gets a proper concave on it. EMPs come down and blanket pretty much all of the army. Disruptors try and shoot their shot, but are target fired down. Spirit's got to play this out carefully, but as does MaxPax. I mean, they're both going to try and... It's like, you know, there's like this gif of like 2 birds doing a mating dance where they're like flipping their tails back and forth at each other. All right, like imagine that, except they're trying to be really intimidating and they're like, tail. Be worried about. Like, they're both kind of puffing up their feathers. Because I don't think either one really wants to take this huge engagement. If they want to take this engagement, any engagement in the future, it's because they realize it is the most perfect setup possible for them. But that's going to be really hard to find. Warp Prism is finally taken down. 4 Zealots will be a nuisance, but not for very long. And it looks like we have a big old drop that was just observed. Oh, no. The Zealots leading the way are just barely going to give Spirits that glimpse onto the chasing army. So you can see MaxPax actually realized that was going to be the case and tried to pull them back at the last second. But, you know, that should really be obvious now that there's an observer somewhere, but he can't see it. It's a little bit thicker, and yet he cannot see it. That is very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. He's probably hoping this missile turret was actually covering most of it, and it's very close to, actually. Well, maybe not that close, but yeah, that's just bad news. Scan ahead's gonna see, actually, not even the entire army. That was without the stalkers. Not that they would have added that much of a punch, but clearly MaxPax wasn't paying attention. He was still on the lookout for that triple drop, I guess. So he actually did not see that it had returned home with this observer. This observer lied to him. That's very mean. And now, Spirit is in this great position, which, I mean, this is really his end goal, was to just get across the map without being bombarded by disruptors. And now that his siege units, not that disruptors are like siege, but you kind of get what I'm saying here. Now that his units that take control of space, there you go, are in position, now MaxPax is really in trouble. So MaxPax didn't really want to, as you know, referring to my earlier analogy, he didn't really want the other guy to suddenly attack him. He wanted to puff up his feathers and say, like, well, you can't, because I'll just have disruptors in your face all the time. And then as soon as he was caught out of position, not paying attention, Spirit did pounce on him, and Spirit's army is better if disruptors don't hit him in the face. Run by is going to take down Spirit's economy even further. I mean, it really is on its last legs. 27 SCVs, I guess they'll saturate one base. So maybe that's all Spirit needs. But MaxPax, despite losing 2 of his bases, 3rd and natural, still has his 4th base up and running. It still has a ton of minerals to mine from. All the probes are over there, so it's super oversaturated. Gas might become a problem. The main base is out of gas. So if MaxPax wants to continue building upgrades or disruptors, I actually think his robo died. Yeah, his robo died, so not bad, I guess. Well, then it's going to be really difficult to do. +2 is on the way for MaxPax still. So that must be somewhere in the main base. And also the Zealots are still harassing, but a base that no longer is caring to mine. The 3rd base is where all the SCVs are. And we just haven't actually paid attention as MaxPax to try and deal with that. He's trying to just make himself appear super small in the corner. Please don't find me. Please don't kill me with your tanks. And it's not quite working. Spirit doesn't have any reason to back away. MaxPax is trying to crab battle. But unlike an actual crab with a knife, he's actually not that scary. The Zealots finally realize, hey, where are those SCVs go? And stop the mining on the 3rd base. Killing many of the SCVs in the process, down to 7 SCVs, 2 bases lifted, not dropping mules, not mining, and Spirit still with the knowledge that if he takes this too quickly, he could very well die. I was waiting for this. MaxPax finally finds the change and the opportunity and perhaps the desperation to go ahead and add on those disruptors, which are fantastic in base trades and fantastic in low econ situations, which it definitely is. Don't forget that Spirit now has 2 options, however, to dealing with invisible units as he finally takes care of that one pesky observer that is the only observer, now dead, no robo. He's got EMP and 2 scans still, because his main... I mean, well, then it could land, I guess. It's not going to, apparently. He's even continuing to hold on to his army back at home because he really doesn't need reinforcements to win these fights. He, again, just needs that better positioning. He needs the fight to go well for him. And it's gotten a little less forceful as the upgrades have at least finished up. Disruptor's absolutely going to grab 2 tanks. We're only on 3 disruptors. Most of them have shot their shot, and that's why Spirit is engaging. This is the 3rd and last shot until those other 2 are off cooldown. Guardian Shield now gone. Archon's gonna get popped in the front line. Zealots all gone as well, and now it is just the soft underbelly of the Stalkers, which is pretty easy to size up against, or is it? From behind, MaxPax's harassment army comes in to actually help out the main one, helps to take out everything, pushes those units closer to death against the disruptors, and Spirit just had one option, that was to get the heck out of there. Now the DT gets warped in the main base. It's gonna need an EMP, which he does not have available, and MaxPax is once again gonna pull a rabbit out of his hat. He is so damn good at this. He always makes a comeback happen. Well, almost always makes a comeback happen, even after the 4-gate has seemingly been unsuccessful. Now Spirit trying to set up one of those back attacks as well, but the back attack from him is just a little A little less intimidating. The bio left over. Oh my god, one of it is going to get picked up. One medevac worth of units is going to get picked up. Nexus falls down. Marines chasing after the probes. No, there's no 400 minerals left over, guys. So the probes all die. And I guess you could still replace one or two of them. But Zealots even going to have trouble dealing with the last few Marines. They are going to win the battle with more Zealots coming up. That is probably going to be it for Spirit. He hasn't been able to get back to mining. No mining has occurred for Spirit in the last minute of this game. If he had been able to find a bit of a hidden base situation over here and had dropped a bunch of mules during all of that, he has another 20 Marines that might still make the difference. But now he is shit out of luck. He doesn't have much to go on. He's mining the last remnants of his main base that apparently is still here. And MaxPax is long distance mining to his remaining Nexus. He's still got 30 probes. The long distance mining ain't bad, actually. And I guess Spirit's waiting for that EMP to finally come into effect. He's trying to get his other base up and running, but that's already burning, actually. He drops out, EMPs the DT to get it revealed. Luckily has a snipe, because apparently that thing wasn't dying with the shield battery helping out here. And Spirit, he's got some freaking spirit, guys. He's not going to give this up, apparently, even though the army is clearly at a disadvantage now. And I can't blame him, I gotta say. This was really supposed to be his game. And Spirit will not be winning game number 1. Pain. You know, it's just pain. MaxPax doesn't have 4 disruptors. He has 3. I mean, that's huge. MaxPax kind of just forgets that Dark Templars exist. I mean, that actually probably didn't play that much of a part, honestly. But he doesn't use his harassment army to come back and get that surrounds. Probably more stalkers died on this front, and then the pickup happens, and then we still have 3 medevacs picking stuff off and just being a nuisance. And everything has come together pretty perfectly for MaxPax. Spirit, with those last few minerals, has built up 20 army supply. Now, well, it's half the army supply of his opponent. So that doesn't sound so good, right? That doesn't sound like he's gonna win. And he's probably not. But keep in mind, if he catches the Zealots, or the Stalkers blink forward in error, then you've taken down 10 army supply. Then it's just the Zealots and Disruptors, for instance. And that is something you absolutely can micro against. I mean, 100% actually. The Stalkers are still very, very important. So I'd even say it's better to, well, obviously it's not better. It's there's no good situation where MaxPax loses army, right? I'm just wondering what would actually be the best situation for him. So blink forward like that, right? If somehow Spirit had been able to stand his ground and kill those Stalkers, that would have been huge. Instead, MaxPax, unsurprisingly, chooses the right moment. Gets a medevac, forces the disengage. Spirit trying to hide the army that could not be picked up, while also trying to get a command center on location, but one pesky little Zealot stopping it from doing any amount of muling. And MaxPax has decided, you know what is a good idea? A hidden base. He's going to grab a hidden base up to the top right, hope that Spirit never checks it. I doubt that Spirit will. He is going around, but it looks like he's anticipating the third base being back. And it's not. That's actually where the army is. If Spirit could have killed this Nexus before 400 minerals were accrued, it would have been a draw. Yes, and he actually thinks that he might still be able to do it. He's going to try and go for it. It's his only opportunity, really. The Stalkers are already here, man. They're actually, it's too gone. It's too far gone. It's not going to happen. The Nexus is not going to fall, but even if it did, it wouldn't have mattered. There is another Nexus on the field, and Spirit cannot do any more mining. He's just been denied. That's it, man. GG. MaxPax wins game 1 when he really had no business to. No business. On a Royal Blood for game 2, in the bottom left, it is MaxPax. Top right, we have Spirits. He's certainly going to need some to keep his mental strong. It's pretty easy to tilt after a game like that. One where you maybe not felt like you deserved to win, and Spirit's probably very familiar with MaxPax's wily ways, his ways of coming back in a game like that. But still, one that I think a pro gamer would at least technically look at and say, well, this is supposed to go this way, and then that way, and then this person is supposed to win. That game was more to the commentators, you know, the people that are very cautious of saying, well, you know, if this or that happens instead. And that's exactly what happened. This or that happened instead. Spirit didn't just get the easy peasy game. even though he really had almost everything lined up to do so. That Warp Prism in the main base, keeping his reinforcements back, keeping him from focusing entirely on the push at the front, actually doing damage, of course, right? I mean, all of that was just so annoying. You think you deal with it, and then it just, they continue just throwing units at you on the ground as well, like... Very annoying. MaxPax's probe scout saw the incoming SCV, and he basically assumed that it was going to be an engineer made block, and he was absolutely correct. So the pre-pool on the 4 probes really was perfect, if you can have this happen. I mean, that is a better option. I think it gets kind of weird if you just... well, first of all, it's very easy for probes to stop attacking the SCV. I'm sure Protoss players know exactly what I'm talking about. For some reason, the SCV moves to go, you know, drill a hole elsewhere in the building, and the probes are like, huh? What? Where'd they go? Fucking ninja. Huh? And they have to tell them to attack it again. So, if that happens once or twice, and the engineering bay is like halfway done, or 60% done, I think it does get kind of weird, the 4 probe pool. And then you wish you had started a zealot, but, yeah, if you do scout it immediately, pulling the probes is going to make your build a lot cleaner. Spirit waits for the Adept Shade to pop out. There's another Adept Chrono, however, so this Reaper's not going to get too much time to play around. Oh, almost saved that 1 probe. And actually, a 2nd probe's going to go down. Hot diggity damn! That Reaper having some fun now. Dodging and weaving away from the Adept Shade, too. You should live. You should live. Yeah, there we go. Well, we also have the Marines trying to deal with the Adepts. There was actually 3 Marines up there. Oh, that was an SCV. Okay, I was confused about how he got 3 Marines miraculously. No, he just went to Reaper Marine by the looks of things. So that's also surprised MaxPax maybe a little bit. The SCV pull, tanking the shots, was pretty perfect. Good finishes, and now a single Adept can't really do a whole lot. Did I see Spirit vs. Raynor game 1 from last week? Oh yeah, I cast it. And, yeah, nothing but praise for Spirit, man. He played really well. I know, I was talking to Kelazur, and he kind of joked that since Spirit did early game damage, he was less impressed, but I was impressed. Reaper gets that confirmation on the Stargate as well as the Phoenix. However, looks like at the same time, didn't micro the supply depot, which gets that confirmation that it is a medevac drop. Now, because the Phoenix are on the way, Spirit just might not do the Widowmine drop. Okay, he is still going to do the Widowmine drop. And the Adepts has seen all of that. It technically doesn't know if that's a medevac, though, or Viking. So it's possible they started the Viking and were meaning to add a tech lab to the factory, and they were going to play a good old-fashioned Cyclone Viking defense. If the Adepts get in, though, they're going to see the medevac. Yeah. So they absolutely shouldn't be able to do that. Oh, sorry, wrong guys. Yeah, no, not anywhere close. They're going to still see that 1 Widowmine that they saw previously. They're going to miss the medevac, miss second Widowmine, and as such, maybe MaxPax isn't... I mean, it doesn't really matter, to be honest, actually. Maybe MaxPax sends his Phoenix across the map, as he actually does, literally right there, and then pulls them back in time. Or maybe he's just staying at home with the Phoenix. Either way, it's always about whether or not the Phoenix are in position anyways, of whether or not a Widowmine drop is successful or not. Like, whether they scouted or not, I guess might give them some clue. Like, MaxPax maybe should have his Phoenix back at home if he absolutely for a fact knew that it was a Widowmine drop. So it's possible he did assume that was a Viking. 1 Phoenix on the rally, however, was able to spot it, so a little bit of notice. Oh yeah, with that many units, yeah, Spirit's just gonna keep on microing. Yeah, pacha. Gonna go after, I mean, nothing as long as he can. As long as he can keep this up, yeah, he really shouldn't go after anything, because this is all lost mining time, right? So, more ideally, Spirit would have not been caught by this single Phoenix here, would have boosted in through here. Maybe the probes are pulled, but that's even a bit longer on the denied mining, and then the medevac might have been able to escape too. But it wasn't quite perfect for him. Could have been worse. We all know that the worst case scenario in this build versus build is if the Phoenix just like immediately find the medevac. I mean, that just, you're screwed. So that, you know, that's not too bad. And the Phoenix spent so much time back at home that we do now have 2 Vikings and 2 Cyclones. Here to defend. Third CC is the option for spirits. I do know that, speaking to some of the Terrans, they are, you know, understandably uncomfortable. It's not wrong. It's not that kind of fear that is different from, you know, a solid respect and understanding that can plague some players when they really get in their own head. It's just that it is kind of difficult to go ahead and do a 2-base push against the Phoenix player. So adding on a third CC instead of going up to, you know, 3 racks first or up to 5 racks, you know, I'm sure there are options. Cyclones having to be mass repaired and then unsuccessfully being mass repaired feels a little bad for Spirit, who really has not had anything on this game go particularly well. Until the Viking and Cyclones died, I guess it wasn't so bad. I'll hold to that. But then losing 2 Vikings, 2 Cyclones, and only a Phoenix dying in exchange, I mean, it's not a great game for Spirit. Wow. Might have to fall back on what we know him for, which is that Supreme Macro. He knows how to turtle. So that's why I can put that one. Sim Combat Shields 1-1 all on the way. Now MaxPax, he has a third base up. He now is 16 probes ahead. For a second there, he's only about 10. So that wasn't too bad. But now is looking a lot better. And didn't go into his own extreme greed. I mean, we're going to have the upgrade lead for the Terran. And without something like Charge helping out the push, Spirit's not going to be pushed for a while. Actually, Spirit's quite afraid that he's going to be pushed, which I think is very understandable. I do think that Colossus push after a disastrous start for the Terran player can be just gold for the Protoss. And the tanks can only anchor so much when you know that the Phoenix are going to be around trying to pick them up. So Spirit is playing very defensively on the chance that this is going to be a push, because he has 0 scouting on the map. Had he seen the positioning of the third base army, right, that's still over there somehow, some way, then maybe he doesn't build those bunkers yet. And the timing of the bunkers is kind of important. You know, I didn't actually see at the time, but I can almost guarantee that 300 minerals was interrupting something in his build order. It's still a worthwhile investment, especially because Spirit probably is identifying this game as a game where he's going to have to turtle, right? So this isn't about just dealing with a potential Colossus push. That is mostly done, maybe because of the early game being really good for MaxPax. He's also thinking long-term. I'm going to use these bunkers until I'm up to 4 bases, maxed out with Liberators, possibly. So MaxPax, with all the scouting gets from the Phoenix and this Observer, wow, okay, this Observer is perfectly placed, knows the situation. And I think also can infer, like I can, that Spirit's probably going to play this way for a while yet. This isn't going to suddenly all salvage, pull the SCVs, and go for it, although that would be a twist. Now, it's going to go into the Supreme late game. So, MaxPax, good news for him. He's got all the time in the world. He can bully, he can pressure, he can expand, he can transition. Whatever he wants to do, man. And one thing he can't do possibly is win right here. And so that's the downside, is that he's going to have to play a maybe frustrating turtle, you know, Protoss turtle. But we'll see. We'll see if there's any openings. War Prism's going to try and set up the initial opening. There's so much dead space on Royal Blood. Oh my god, that one missile turret, it had hopes and dreams. And it was never destined for anything. Only if MaxPax literally shift-clicked his War Prism, which I'm pretty sure he's good about not doing. But it's most important right now not to panic a Spirit. He's got SimCity and Siege units helping cover whatever supply deficit he might have for having to deal with the main base. And he split probably the least amount necessary, while also making sure to keep all of his buildings alive and his SCVs mining. So no opening was created. It was a bit on the nose. If Spirit, in his experience, with all of his experience doing this type of stuff, panicked at that, I mean, that's... You know, we would have judged him a little bit. Like, you're kind of supposed to do well at this point. But anyway, because he is doing well. He is playing like Spirit. We are more so expecting a brilliant maneuver from MaxPax when Spirit tries to take the 4th base. Then that's the opening. I don't know what the brilliant maneuver will be, but I'm sure it'll be brilliant. Let's look at the 3rd base over here. The Zealots over on the 3rd base are going to be quite a problem. That's going to be annoying. Spirit, knowing that something has to be done across the map. One little medevac. One little medevac. Observer has not yet been found out. And as such, that might have been scouted. But MaxPax is completely maxed out, which is arguably a mistake. Arguably a mistake. Because if all these cannons finish up, then it really is not a big deal. And he could probably safely recall, I would say, right? Even if he did have to. He could safely recall, and there wouldn't be a lot of ground gained by Spirit, I would imagine. Well, that would be Spirit's opening to grab his 4th, which he's actually already doing, so that's not even important anymore. And it would be his opportunity to try and start moving across the map if a recall was forced. If MaxPax is like, whatever, man, I'll just deal with this. Fuck it. So yeah, there is that. But of course it didn't. Only a couple units had to be sent back. Static defense was finishing, and the game is full turn mode. That is a under-defended 4th base. But quickly, well defended. Positioning here, really, really nice. MaxPax's army, not all that impressive when you're on 97 probes. It was lacking a lot of that buffer, a lot of that strength, a lot of the muscle. I guess with like zealots, basically. So the tanks are able to free fire, no problem there. Big ol' army was split on the right side, as we can see, but it's not super successful. MaxPax basically just coming home at the right time to really stop this from doing any extreme amount of damage. I think that was supposed to be way more awkward than it was. Spirit was hoping that so much of the army was pushing into this location that he could hold and then even blitz into a nexus or 2 before having to be cleaned up, because I do think he's expecting to be cleaned up. The Phoenix are still around after all, so, well, not too many of them right now, but generally I would expect that to be a blitz move, kill a base, kill this base, kill the robotics bay, kill the robo, something like that, scout that is a bunch of Stargates, and then say, okay, you did your job, well done, guys. You can die with dignity. 4th base secured, saturated. 5th base is on the way for Spirits, and another triple drop as well. It would be all too easy for Spirits to actually just go into a Liberator play and then really play passively. I think he is trying to play a little bit surprisingly by trying to continue to play mostly biocentric and try and do these drops. But the time is not necessarily on his side. At some point, he does have to go into starports to deal with the Stargates of his opponents, which he is doing. And then we can talk about the differences of the patch for that particular point in time when we get there. Drop on the 5th base of MaxPax is going to be quite successful. Looks like the Nexus might not be saved. Carriers are not particularly good at killing things, all by their lonesome. Not 2 of them anyways. Yeah, so the Nexus goes down. 0 repercussions so far. I do not include this army dying as really the biggest repercussion. I would expect more like a base of Spirits going down as a repercussion. And that is not happening. He's also getting yet another bundle of units to go across on the right side and once again try and blitz somewhere. This pylon, being quite pesky, is going to get a recall. The Disruptors come out, and the last 2 are going to get a shot. Only one of them truly successful, however. It's a nice last-second split, but it hopefully buys time for MaxPax to go ahead and come over and save the Nexus. Indeed, it will. His army is coming, and Spirit doesn't want to give so much away in such a short amount of time, and I do think that is definitely a smart call. I think that this attack, if it had died, it still got its worth. It killed the Nexus, right? Big disruption. Then went into the main base, a little bit more time bots, and time buying is very important. But then if you're going to immediately throw away another 30 or 40 army supply, I mean, you're not that rich, first of all, as a Terran player. And second of all, Terran players aren't particularly good at, even if they were rich, suddenly massing up 60 supply again. 30 supply, that'll happen quickly enough. 60, I don't know about that one. Especially as we've gone into a slower, more expensive style as the triple starport is now up and running. So we're getting into Vikings. No Liberators quite yet. I do expect they'll be added. I do think they are still helpful for this big Terran push that we're talking about. And even if it's not that, even if Spirit continues to be more of a harasser type, which he's currently going for, 1 or 2 Liberators can really trip things up. So far, not the case. Spirit definitely more mindful of trying to be all the way on position, always active, and then also trying to defend at home, of course, with the tanks still sieged up. Do remember that's also taking a bite out of Spirit's overall army supply. So we have splits going on. It's hard to say exactly what is fighting what, but we also have bunkers with units in them and tanks sieged up at home. That's not a lot of Vikings against 4 carriers. But the Vikings, assuming they're in range of the carrier, now auto-shoot the carrier. The Marines are hardly ever in range of the carrier, so they are usually still doing their job, which is killing the interceptors. That dynamic hasn't changed so much. And we have the attack on the left that actually MaxPax was kind of tracking to a degree. Apparently it was lost a little bit. Nexus goes down once again, and the army is going to skedaddle. Spirit showing his expertise when it comes to supreme late game TVP, position that other Terran players will try desperately not to get into. And Spirit was, yes, forced into this, but there are other Terran players, Euthermal comes to mind, who if they knew their game was bad, they would have taken the opportunity to go into a 3-base tank all-in and then hope that it worked, right? So that's definitely still two very extreme options, and this was the macro extreme, which Spirit usually chooses. Upgrades are non-existent for Spirit's air. That's a bit of a problem, but MaxPax's ground isn't wholly upgraded, so keep that in mind. EMP is going to hopefully blanket most of the army. At this point, they are nerfed. We would usually have enhanced shockwaves done. Not in this game, because we're on a new patch. You can see the power of the Terran army, even though the Protoss looks like that proper death ball, cloaked even. The Terran still has a shot. Needs everything to go kind of well, and it looks like at this point Spirit is realizing it's not going to go well enough so close to his production point 2. He's going to have to give up that base and try and go for, well, a little bit of a base trade, which is already not starting off particularly well since his medevac count is so low. Every stim is going to hurt. He actually can't stim, so he can't. It's like, it's not a blitz, it's a slow. So slowly run away, guys. Just slowly go for it. Looks like we had a recall from MaxPax. Was the split proper? Well, so many Marauders are coming out, actually, that it kind of is. If this was 20 Marines up here, that might have been different. And the mothership still isn't dead. Ay. Spirit, he needs one hell of an engagement. Army supplies are still even, but now it's all over the place. Medevacs haven't healed up a lot of the army. Upgrades are still a factor, and MaxPax is closing in. The jaws are starting to come down on Spirit's poor little surfer body. The shark is here, and it looks like it's gonna kill you. It looks like it's gonna kill you. Sometimes sharks just take a little nibble, and it's not that bad. You know, just a shark bite, it's fine. In this case, I think it's gonna kill you. Spirit played a hell of a 19-ish minute game, but at the end of it, never really got the proper, I think, composition against what MaxPax was getting. It's really hard to, but I would say in this case, you'd actually want to, well, one, have more Vikings. So that was a big problem. GG. More Vikings. But then also, the amount of Marauders starts to come into question, and it's a really difficult thing to try and size up correctly, because if you have pure Marine...